So let's now make some examples of typical purchase and sales processes. And we just saw that the first step, or the most important document in the purchase process, is the purchase order. So I will start with creating a purchase order, and from there on we can post the receipt and the invoice. So let's start with creating a new purchase order, and that's something I can do directly from the ribbon in my role center. And here you can see a new purchase order. So let me first show all the standard fields, and I will come back to the additional fields later. And the first thing, of course, that we need to do is enter the vendor number. Now that's something I can do by entering the number itself, or if you might know your vendors better by their name, you can also enter, for example, the name, like London. So next I can select, for example, the first vendor. So this is the first step in manually entering a purchase order. Now, by the way, this shouldn't always be the first step in the purchase process. You can also start purchase processes with a purchase quote, a blanket order, or the planning worksheet. These functions are discussed more in detail in the course Trade. Next, you can see the vendor invoice number with a red asterisk, and this means that this is a mandatory field. But at this moment, I will leave it blank because we only need a field when invoicing the purchase order. And when you enter the purchase order in real life, in most of the cases, you don't know the vendor invoice number already. So let me now click on Show More, and here you can see now all the additional fields of the general fast step of my purchase order. And I would like to focus here on the 3 date fields that you can see here. So first of all, there's the document date. So this is the date of the document. With the document, we mean the invoice. So if we invoice the purchase order, which I will do in one of the following steps, I will need to make sure that the document date is correct. And the document date is used to calculate, for example, the due date. So the document date plus the payment terms will result in the due date, in this case, the last day of the month. Then there is the posting date, also very important, because if I start posting the purchase order, which is something that I will do by clicking on Post in one of the following steps. So when I would like to receive the items or post the invoice, I will need to make sure that the posting date is correct, so that the entries are posted on the correct date. And then we have the due date. And the due date, like I just said, is calculated based on the document date and the payment terms. And here at the right side, you can then see the order date. So this is the date on which the order is created. So this is important on the header. You can see a lot of additional fields which can also be very interesting to use, but for this introduction course I will just leave them blank. And if I click on Show Less, there we go. We have the basic layout of the general fast step. If I scroll down, you can see a number of other fast steps, like for example invoice details, shipping and payment, foreign trade. And of course, on all these fast steps, you can see specific information such as the payment terms, such as, for example, the address to which to ship. So based, for example, on a location, based on our addresses and so on. Again, you can enter information here, but for my introduction course, I will just leave this blank, or I will just leave it as it is, and I will go to the purchase lines. Now this is very important. What can we purchase? Well, by clicking on the type field, you can see the different options we have. So we can enter GL accounts, which for purchasing is quite important, because you will also purchase expenses like office furniture, you will receive the phone bill, the electricity bill, and these purchases are posted in most of the cases directly to a GL account. I will make an example after this one. Then of course we also have item, so one of the most important types when purchasing items, for example. You can also purchase fixed assets like cars, machinery, computers, and so on. And there is also item charge. Now, item charge is used to assign additional charges such as freight, packing, import duties, and so on to items. So in this case, I will of course select item. Next, I can enter an item. And same here, you can start entering the number, but if you know your items better by their description, you can start entering the description, and in this case select, for example, item 9020S. Next, the system will retrieve the location code from the purchase header, in this case blue, and then I can enter the quantity, for example 48. And based, if I scroll a little bit more to the right, based on the direct unit cost, the system will then of course calculate the total line amount, as you can see here. So this is the first step in my purchase process. In real life, the next thing that I will do is probably send the purchase order to the vendor, which you can do by sending it by email or by printing it and, for example, sending it indirectly by email or by fax. Then, after the confirmation, if we then receive the items, we should update the fields here on the line. So once the confirmation has been received and once the vendor starts shipping the items, we can start posting the receipts. So when the receipts are posted based on the quantity to receive. Now in this case, I only see the quantity received. So let me go to the choose columns function and let me add a number of columns. So I will add, in this case, the quantity to receive, the quantity to invoice, and the quantity invoiced. Because these 4 fields will give you an overview of the status of your purchase order. So again, we have ordered 48 pieces, and now if I scroll to the right, you can see that the 48 is repeated in the quantity to receive field and the quantity to invoice field. But you can also see that they're editable. So I can change, for example, 48 in the quantity to receive field to 32. And if I would post this, we're doing a partial receipt. You see, so it could be possible that the customer doesn't have the 48 desks on stock, but they have 32, which they already delivered to us. Then we can do a partial receipt. Okay, let's do this. I will go now to the post action in the ribbon. And there you can see now that we can select receive, invoice, or receive and invoice. So in this case, the vendor only shipped the tables to us. So I will select receive, and next I can click on OK. And now you will see that based on this, the system will update the line. So we have quantity to receive 16. There's quantity received 32. But we still need to invoice everything. So the full 48 pieces still needs to be invoiced, which means that there's nothing invoiced yet. So now suppose that a couple of days the vendor ships the final 16 pieces and also invoices the full quantity, the 48 pieces. We can then do a second posting. So first of all, I will update the document date. So for example, this is now received on, let's say, the 2nd of February, so I will enter the 2nd of February. Now I need to enter the vendor invoice number because I also want to invoice the purchase order. And for example, on the vendor invoice, I see that the number is LP18001, for example. Next, I can go again to post. And now I will select receive and invoice, which means that the system will receive the final 16 pieces and will invoice all 48 pieces. So let me do this. So everything is posted now, and the system will now ask me to open the posted invoice. So let me click on yes. And here you can see now the posted results. And so this is the posted invoice on which I can see the 48 tables. As you can see here, I can see also the amounts. So the total amount excluding VAT, the VAT amount we need to pay, and the total amount including VAT. And as we saw in one of the previous modules, I can now also very easily navigate on this document because I would like to see which entries have been created. Now you can see the posted purchase invoice, the 3 GL entries, the VAT entry, and so on. So in this case, the system created a posted purchase invoice which updates the chart of accounts as we saw on the diagram at the beginning of this module, but it has also created posted purchase receipts. So let's go to the posted purchase receipt. So if I enter posted purchase, I can go to the posted purchase receipts. There we go. And you can see here at the top 2 purchase receipts for vendor 10,000. And let me select the first one. So if I open the first one, you can see, if I scroll down, the 32 tables received with the first receipt we posted. And if I click on navigate here, you can see that the system, when posting the receipt, created a posted purchase receipt, but also an item ledger entry and a value entry. And the item ledger entry, as we saw in the diagram, is used to update the inventory. So if I click on show related entries, you can see here the item ledger entry created by the system, and when posting, the inventory has been updated with 32 pieces of this item. So this was a first example of a typical purchasing process, and you can now go to the practice of this lesson where you can make a similar example.